So welcome, and if you see it pop up saying that someone needs to be admitted and I'm in the middle of talking and trying to look at you guys, just tell me that I need to let somebody in.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about becoming a learning technologist, and the first thing I want to say to you guys is thank you so much for sending me those questions, because it was a lot easier for me to work out what needed done or what needed answering. So I think very briefly, a learning technologist is someone who looks at the technology and thinks, how can I use this to support learning or teaching or assessment? But this job has so many different facets, and that's what you'll see. One thing that I will say is I'm going to send you the slides. So where you see that there's links and stuff, there's places for you to do further research. So I thought I'd start with my story. So in 1996, I was an English teacher in Hong Kong. And after teaching for a little while, I became the director of a charity called Summerbridge, and it was an educational charity, and we worked with the underprivileged kids in the refugee camps, so some from Vietnam, and also the underprivileged kids in Hong Kong that were high academic achievers. And we got very high academic achievers from the international schools to become their peer, their mentors, and help them to achieve things. And it was a really great program. And then after that, because that was sort of, nonprofit charity work, I went to Ecuador, and I was also the academic director there for the experiment in international living, which now everybody just calls EIL because that name is so fluffy. After that, I went to Germany and I taught business English. I presented at conferences. I was a teacher trainer. I was a blogger for a while. I was one of the first education bloggers way back, it's like 2009. I co-wrote a couple of textbooks, and I was also a consultant for an M-learning company. And I sort of hit this point where I realized that I knew a lot about teaching. I used a lot of technology, but I didn't actually understand the relationship. And so that's pretty much why I decided to come to the University of Manchester. And I had no intention of staying here. I was like, this place rains all the time. And 10 years later, I'm still here, almost 11 years later. So I did my MA, and then after that, I got, like, in my MA, I was really interested in gamification in particular. And so in the year between my MA, and I was doing mine part-time over 2 years, I decided that I would study math. And then from there, I got into FutureWorks, which is one of the top game design schools in the UK, let alone Manchester. And so I did my diploma in games design and development. And I was working all the time, all the way through as a teacher. And at some point, my boss was like, oh, can you help us with the digital development? And so, I devised this whole training program for learning the interactive whiteboards. The top picture on the right is these Nabi tablets. We're like 24-inch mobile tablets, and we use them to teach English with, which was a fantastic project. But I had done this MA with the intention of getting a good job. It's not that I didn't like teaching, but I wanted more money. And I thought the game design would lead me to becoming an educational game designer. That was the plan. But it didn't quite work out that way. So I wound up applying, I think, to the University of Sheffield and then to the University of Manchester. And I took on a job as a support officer, first in the Faculty of Science and Engineering. And then after a year, I moved over to the Faculty of Humanities. And then in 2020, as a result of the pandemic and the craziness and the overworkness, because we were really busy, then I got promoted to be a learning technologist. And so that's where we are now. So the thing is that many people have completely different paths to get here. And what I did was I asked my colleagues if they would help me answer your questions. And so you can see that some people actually, you know, they just took a really like a low-level job after undergraduate in the university and then worked their way up. Some people were working at alternative companies and, you know, sort of doing clinical research, and then that helped them to get here. A couple of people were actually academics. And then we're like, oh, this is interesting. You know, I think I like the technology more than I like the teaching. And then, you know, came in that way. So there's different routes in, and it doesn't actually matter where you came from first, you know. I should say that all the way through, I have these like pages where people have helped me answer that question. So that's why I'm going to send you the slides after, so you guys can read it if you're interested. So transitioning from teaching to learning and getting a foot in the door. The main thing that you have as a teacher is an understanding of how to teach. Without being cruel, the learning technologists who have no teaching experience, they don't know what it's like to manage a group of students. They don't know what it's like to say, let's create some, you know, groups. And they don't have any idea of project-based learning. They don't have an understanding of what the academic is trying to do. So they might have a theoretical understanding and they'll understand the tech. But the truth is that if you're an educator, you have a major advantage. When someone is reading through your CV and seeing that you were in the past a teacher, that is automatically a plus in your favor. So I would see that as something very, very positive. And you can see that some of my colleagues really had a lot to say. So I'll let you read those in your own time. But what I did want to say or answer was this: how do we get a foot in the door? And there are some associations that you can join. So for example, in the UK, there is something called the Association for Learning Technology, or ALT. And as a university employee, I can join for free, but I think the membership is something like £30 a year, maybe something around that. So first of all, if you're going to look in the UK, then I'm going to say this is the first stop you want to go to. Go here, because you'll get this digest every week, and it tells you everything that's going on in just one email page. But every week they also advertise the latest jobs. And so this is something super key. And you can get a sense of the salary ranges. and you can have a look and you can start to get an idea of what people are looking for. And you can already see that there's quite a difference. Like in this case here, it's designing an environment. This one will be maybe a job maybe like mine. This one is looking at program design, right? And so you can get a sense of the type of jobs that learning technologists do. The other thing that I wanted to show you was LinkedIn. Like there are so many jobs you can do. User research, designing things, content creation. And so LinkedIn, if you just typed in learning technology in LinkedIn, first of all, there's 4,300 groups that you can join. And then in the jobs section, there's just hundreds of jobs. Oops, sorry, my alarm just went off. Okay. So what do we do? A lot. It's a really busy job. So my number one priority is to support the academics. So my job will include training, or I get a lot, oops, Ming Cheng is here. I get a lot of, how do I do this? Or really a lot of, why isn't this working? What happened? I want to change. I want to work in a different way. Or they'll say, okay, I've heard about Padlet, and I've also heard about this other tool from Google, and what's the difference between the two of them? And then I'll just bring it up on screen and show them and talk through some of the pros and cons of that tool. Pretty much, like, I don't know if you guys still do the course evaluation of software. Do you have that one? Okay, that was something that Gary Motteram used to run, and that was a fantastic course, because you literally you had to go through and say what the pros and cons of different types of software were, and that's a really good skill. And I remember developing a way of working through different types of, I think I was looking a lot at mobile apps in his course. So I would say start thinking about things like that. When you go onto a piece of software, think, how can I use this? What's the pedagogical function? Is this going to be something that somebody who's blind can use? Like if you think about Padlet, does it work with the software to read it? So it's that sort of, those sort of evaluative questions that you want to start doing now. I also am the service area lead for staff development and training. So that means I coordinate all the workshops, I send out updates, keep records, writing reports. I think it's really important to say that some of my job is very, very boring, right? Just so you know that, like, there are some really exciting projects that I work on, and you'll see those. But also some of my job is going through a spreadsheet for a day. I think that's all jobs. And then I'm also the deputy for the VR side of things. And so the pandemic kind of put a spanner in the works, because just before the pandemic, maybe February, we were working with the museum to create a set of resources, and we were scanning in these ancient objects, 3,000-year-old objects, with the concept that they would be used by a school in Australia, and then also connecting with some students in Egypt. And also at the end of the project, we were going to be 3D printing those objects for blind students who visit the museum. So it was a very, very exciting project. That was February 2020. And yeah. And then, but more recently, I helped out an academic with a Google Cardboard experience, and we did a VR tool through the Valley of the Kings. So that was exciting. I also have like regular drop-ins where the academics come and visit me and ask questions, not just me, all of my colleagues. We run support in exams. And so what happens sometimes in our jobs is that we have these exciting projects, and then we have these times where everything has to drop and we have to work according to the university seasonality, right? So if it's exams, then it's all hands on deck, and we need to be ready to help the students who are encountering problems, you know, something's gone wrong with their Blackboard, etc. And then we go to team meetings, and we also mentor our colleagues. And then another part of my job, and I think this is kind of a nice thing that maybe you also will have in education if you're a teacher, but this is one thing that I really like about this job, is I do get the opportunity to continue studying. So it's never done. I have a lot of time in my calendar to learn the ins and outs of Microsoft 365. It's an extensive new change that they're bringing through. So that's fantastic. And then I also do project management training. I can go to conferences and workshops. I learn new bits of software. So like over Christmas, I was studying Adobe Illustrator, you know, because it's just another little tick to have. And then I'm also our team's wellness champion, which is fun. So that's kind of like everything that I do. So some of the projects, so for example, because that's a very dry slide, right? But so for example, this was a learning content work that I did in a piece of software called Articulate. And what you might not be able to see from the screen, because it's just a photo of it, is that when you would hover over these boxes, then these things, you know, then it pops out. And so that was a beautiful piece of work that I'm really proud of creating. You know, it's interactive, it's educational, and it's pretty. What more could you want? And then the biggest project to date that I've ever worked on was the University of Manchester's pre-sessional course. So 6 weeks, I guess, April, the university closed in mid-March. And then in April, we were told that the course needed to go online. And it was a massive amount of work to try and make sure that the university didn't lose £5 million, you know. So we took everything that would be taught in person and turned it into online courses. So that was a really great project that was on. And then I also worked with Richard Fay. I don't know if any of you know him. He does cultural studies. Do any of you have Richard Fay? No? Okay, so I worked with him on creating this breakout game that was based on a game again, an in-person game. And yeah, and we turned it into a digital Zoom experience. And then the latest project that I've been working on is some seminars or some panel workshops on what works on teaching. And so like this one, for example, was on being engaging, passionate, and inspirational. And you can see Teslima in the picture.
Sorry,
there.
I just noticed it's not limited to just like the C department, because Vlad is in it and he's in AMBS.
Right. Yeah.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So you have like this, you basically like, my focus is seed, but then I get to work. There are people even from the medical school who join us and something like this. So quite good. So the typical day. Designing, managing, training, supporting. I think that would be your typical day. And then some of my colleagues, oh, no. I wanted to also talk about. So the typical day will vary depending on the different people in the team. So some people are looking at Blackboard or the life cycle of our VLE. Other people are looking at curriculum design. Other people are looking at learning design. Some people are looking at Zoom and Collaborate and versus Teams. Some people are looking at video production. There's a lot of people working on exams. Exams is a very big deal for the university. So there's math-based, there's peer assessment type exams, the AR/VR, as I mentioned before. There's student engagement and what software could work with that. In-class technologies, accessibility. Accessibility is a very, very big and important area that, because we want to make sure that all people have access. So if you just choose a random piece of software, I think like sometimes we get criticized, or a university in general gets criticized for not moving fast enough with the technology. But one of the biggest problems is that you have to look at it from different lenses, and accessibility is one of those lenses that has to be considered. And there's analytics people, and there's data people, and there's licensing people, and there's social media, right? And so these are all my colleagues. That would be the 20 other people in the team. So again, I will let you read the answers from other people, but you'll see things like working with videos. So those of you who are on Micah Donahue's class, pay attention, work hard in that class. That class was definitely one of the most important for me. and definitely gave me an edge when working against, or when interviewing against other people. You want to think about how nice are you? And I know that sounds, I think that's coming up more in soft skills, but you do want to think about how can you answer somebody who asks you the same question 20 times, right? And it's something as simple as all you need to do is log in, so that's part of the day. Yeah. So, yep, my colleagues had a lot to say, so you can read them. And then, yes, so the soft skills. I think I took this from one of the job ads, in this thing about a proactive team member who treats all colleagues and students with respect. And that can sound like something that you don't really consider, like, do I need to be? Yeah, you need to be able to work because you're in teams of, say, 25 people. And if you have somebody who's always a grouch, it's going to be a problem, right? So it has to be somebody who's kind, who's helpful, who's supportive, who's flexible. Like you noticed, you saw somebody from AMBS in one of my slides, and sometimes I'm working with people in the medical school, and sometimes I'm working with engineers or programmers. So you have to just be able to just go, okay, I don't really care who I work with. My goal is just to help you become a better pedagogue, right? And I think this seek new knowledge and share ideas is a very, very important one. I think some people, they feel like I've learned enough, and the truth is that you never, ever, ever, ever have learned enough. Like, even if you're a 95, you haven't learned enough, so constantly seeking out new things. Then, yes, again, you know, communication skills, project management, team working, problem solving. I think the communication skills thing is a really, really important one. Are you able to explain something that's really complicated in easy words? You know, like sometimes people have really, like, they're really, really smart, but they don't know how to dumb it down, you know? So always think about that. How can I make this easier for somebody else to understand? And I think, you know, I was thinking about this with, you have to have patience, because a lot of technology is, it's moving at 100 miles an hour, but then it won't do what you want it to do. And so if you're the kind of person that gets irritated, you won't be able to go forward, because you have to be able to just go, okay, this is going to take me a month, and that's just the way it is. You know, it isn't going to take me, I can't finish it by the end of the day. So then the question about the qualifications. So the DTCE, right off the bat, big tick, smart move. That is going to put you ahead of other people in the queue, especially if you consider working for any of the Russell Group. Anybody who recognizes University of Manchester and you have done the DTCE, you're automatically ahead of somebody who hasn't. So smart move. If you look again at the job specs, then you can, yeah, don't worry about reading it in detail. I'm going to send you the slides, because there was just so much to, there is so much to say, and we have not got so much time to say it in. But I wanted to put in a copy of an example of a job description, so that you could start looking at the kind of things that they're asking for. And then, yeah, there's more. This thing about FHEA, and also I mentioned I did my LEAP. These are things from the Higher Education Authority. So the HEA is the important bit, right? And that's a UK-based evaluation system of how good a teacher you are. So academics do the same qualification. And then we do it as learning technologists, because we're training people. And you have several rungs on that. So look into the FHEA and the HEA in general. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. And then also the CMALT, I think, Certificate of Alternative Technologies. I'm not sure. I can't remember what that stands for, but that's another qualification that you can look for. But the truth is, you are already ahead of others by having the DTCE. And then, there's my mouse. And I wanted to suggest, if you look at the JISC, there's a tool from JISC called the JISC Digital Capabilities Tool. It's basically like, I've put the links in there, and basically it asks you, it might take an hour. I can't really remember how long it takes. It's not fast. And it asks you a series of questions, and then it gives you a profile. And the reason why I would really, really recommend doing this is because you can see where there are gaps in what you should study for. So, you know, there's the teaching, there's the learning, there's innovation, creation, collaboration, data literacy, media literacy. So there's so many things that you can look at. And then, you know, depending on who you are, you'll get low scores in one and high scores in another. And then you can say, oh, okay, I need to go and do a course in blah, blah, blah. So yeah, so do that tool. And then what else can you do? So I loved this question. Be the best teacher. You don't need to be an educational technologist. Be a teacher. You know, if you're not in a life situation where you want more money, that was my case. If I didn't need more money, I would still be a teacher. I love teaching, passionate about teaching. So I would say, if you're good, stay teaching. It's a major responsibility and it's a wonderful job. But alternatively, you could think about academia. So one of your teachers, Taslima, she was on the course with me. We did the DTCE, well, the MA Technologist together. She's become a lecturer. Other people have become researchers. One of the people on the DTCE a couple of years ago was Caroline Bauscher, and she was an academic and a biologist, I believe. Because this is being recorded, I really hope I'm correct. Anyway, she's now Associate Dean of Pedagogy. So the DTCE helped her achieve career goals, major career goals. You can go into student experience. So your role, like studying the DTCE, is not limiting you, it's just expanding the range of things that you do. You can work for an e-learning company like Coursera or Udacity. You can work for learning companies. There's so many mobile apps trying to be, trying to teach, whether it's Busuu or Duolingo. There are multitudes of training organizations. There's publishing houses, because they realize that print is dying. And so a lot of them are looking into ebooks. And general software companies. So Blackboard, the most awful VLE in the universe that you use every day, that's a software company. Go in, go work for somebody like that and say, I want to change it, or create your own, make something better. You can go into completely different training, whatever your, whether you're teaching in kindergarten right now, or you're teaching teenagers, you can flip and go into apprenticeship training and, sort of creating training materials for people who are going to be plumbers. Or you can go out to work for Amazon. Amazon are always advertising. You can work for a bank or a hospital. The NHS is actually a major recruiter of learning technologists. You could go into recruitment. You could say bye-bye to teaching and bye-bye to learning technologists and just hire learning technologists, because your learning in the DTCE will give you that skill set to know who can do what, right? So you have so many options. So like I said, good choice, DTCE. Then this cheeky question. I don't have enough technical and ICT skills to become a learning technologist. Now, this is an interesting one. There are so many places for you to widen your skill set. A lot of my colleagues, or not a lot, some of my colleagues, they said no, right? You can learn on the job. I don't agree. I think, to be honest with you, I think even if you're a baker, you need digital skills. I think if you work in a bank, you need digital skills. I don't see a future without digital skills, which is, you know, I'm going to fess up, I'm totally biased, but I think I would say, I think this thing here, I'm scared. You don't have to be a programmer. You don't have to be an expert. I'm not an expert in anything, but I have a knowledge of a lot of things. And I know how to find the information. So I would say the part that's in this sentence, I'm scared I don't have enough technical and IT skills, you will never, ever, ever have enough technical and ICT skills for anything in life, because technology is moving so faster than we are. But the part that I would say change is the I'm scared. Don't be scared. Accept that you can't possibly have enough IT skills, but work on having some, you know. There's so much for free. You know, just do a basic HTML course, which you could probably learn in 2 afternoons. You know, just enough that if somebody says, I need you to change the way that this page looks just a little bit, that you can just go in the back and change it. A lot of the code that you need is available online. You just Google and you can find the code. But what you need to know is how to copy and paste and put that code in somewhere, you know? So, yeah, but a caveat, a lot of my colleagues are saying, you don't have to be too technical. So, you know, maybe trust the 6 other people who answered this. But yeah, I think if you teach today's students like yesterday's, then where are your students? If you're not going to skill up, then how do you skill up your academics if you're working in a uni, for example? And then how do the academics skill up their students, right? And then they go into the world of work and all of a sudden everybody is using glass and nobody is even using a laptop anymore. We have to get them ready, you know, and so it's our responsibility to be ready ourselves, or at least have a knowledge, right? So that's the end of my presentation, which was very long, and so now you can ask me loads of questions.
So I've been sharing with the person that has communicated to me like that they weren't and they weren't able to come today. I think they're en route to London, something like that.
Okay.
But they asked how can they use the video course with Mike O'Donoghue, right?
Yeah.
They're taking that course. How can they use that to leverage themselves to like acquire a learning technologist job or be better at it and so on?
Yeah, okay. I'm going to do a quick Google search. I'm going to show you what I did. The first thing that I did after Mike O'Donoghue's class. YouTube might be a better place rather than Google. I don't have this bookmarked anymore because it was so many years ago. See British in a minute. So I was an English teacher, as I said, right? So stop here. Okay. Sure. Oh, and of course we have ads because that's the way YouTube works now. Okay, let me just move on a little bit. 1 second. Yeah. Okay. So we'll play the whole thing, but right? So after I did Mike's class, I then decided to start making some little videos for the school that I work for. So it all it was just a way to encourage students to learn a bit of the British slang. And so I made a series of them. I can't remember, maybe it was 20 videos, but you can see, you know, sort of 85,000 views. So they went, you know, across the internet. I mean, it's not millions, but still, you know, I'm just a little person here. But the point is that I used that in my portfolio when I applied for the job. And they love these little cartoon videos. I mean, today, in today's world, now that I look at it, I just see like, okay, I made those in 2013. It looks a little like unprofessional now, because now that I know more about video, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of embarrassing. But you have to start somewhere, you know. So, and in my daily work, or not daily, but monthly, whenever we host the panel workshops, so I do these things, like, for example, I'm recording this now, but I'll need to edit out bits, right? And these are skills that I learned with Mike, right? And I'm chopping in Camtasia. And yeah, Mike's course was so good for thinking about things like where you want. In my project that I did, I remember that I had to think about how people feel when you're looking at them versus watching two people talking, something like that, you know. And so I use that kind of like, you're an observer. I can't remember everything, but yeah, Mike's class was top stuff.
Would it be helpful then to create, on top of a CV, have a link, like a digital portfolio, just showing a bunch of projects that you've made, like digital projects? Because I know for a fact I do have those kind of videos, albeit not animated, but just like how I've edited videos to make learning easier to acquire and stuff like that, and just little projects like that.
Well, the thing to know is that in your LinkedIn profile, you can actually, you can add lots of resources. You know, you can add videos, you can add copies of work, you know, like the interactive game activity that I had made when I was at FSE. But there are portfolio platforms. I think that I put everything in a Google Slides with links when I did mine. But there's one of my colleagues, when he was going for a job at the MMU, he made, there is a software that is created for e-portfolios. I don't know if you guys know it. I haven't had to use it myself, so I can't remember the name of it. But yeah, make that.
Thank you.
Or you can make a Wix, for example, like a mini website of the work that you do. Collect everything that you do. Like if there's anything in your assignments, like one of my assignments, I think I mentioned about the evaluation of software that Gary Motteram used to run. And I did an infographic looking at mobile apps, you know, and then I used that infographic in, you know, as examples of the work that I was capable of creating.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question about, because now I use Notion to make my class notes, but it's kind of like a website, but I did a lot of my own blogs, make it like the VLE. So
Yeah.
is that okay for example, show to in LinkedIn else?
You might want to take like a series of images of it. So you could link the whole site, and then that's just a link, or you could take like images. Let me just show you my LinkedIn profile so you can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I also, by the way, I also showed a video about how to make this and put in on Bilibili, and a lot of people love this, and they asked me to send them
goes in
templates.
LinkedIn. That goes in LinkedIn.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, you basically, LinkedIn, I think when I first started on LinkedIn, I was kind of shy, and I didn't really like do a lot, you know, because I don't want to be a boaster. No, LinkedIn, the whole purpose of it is to say, hey, this is what I do, right? Because people, it's recruiters that are in there. So it's people like you and me, and then it's recruiters. And so when they come to your page, they want to know what you're capable of doing. So yeah, that's
Thank
super
you.
So I'll just show you like
Okay.
briefly, right? So it's this page at the bottom here, or not at the bottom. So it's like behind, underneath your about, and then it goes featured, and then you're able to like, so for example, this was a blog post, and this was the game that I created. This was a link, you know, so you can see that you have this featured area, and you have the ability to move the order of these around. So I'd say LinkedIn is a super place, because yeah, they can see what you can do. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you for your advice.
Any more questions?
So are you an international student as well initially when you started, or were you always based in the UK?
No, I came here in 2011. I wanted the experience. I wanted to be able to walk to the library.
Yeah.
I just wanted to like have the real experience.
Yeah, because I was wondering, I know being an international applicant might not be the most attractive to some companies. So how do you ensure that that's not a deficit to your application, but rather an advantage?
It's your visa. So if you have permission to work, then everything that you have extra is a bonus, right? So Buena, what languages do you speak? You speak English and
Tagalog and Cebuano, and a little bit of French because of Canada, of course.
Right. Okay. So, and you have a Canadian passport, which means that you should have some ability to work here, right? Okay. So someone like you immediately is going to get through, right? You're bringing extra languages. You're bringing the DTCE. You have a lot to share. If you're, say, for example, I was having this conversation with a girl from, I can't remember if she was from India or Pakistan. And there are a lot of Indians and Pakistanis in the UK. And so the first block, and the block that will basically prevent her from getting a job, is she can't get a visa. She's not going to be, if you can't get that visa, then no one is even going to look at you, no matter how good you are here. So you have to, she would have to look for the similar type of role in a country where they were accepting her visa. So I know that a lot of or I think, do Chinese students, do you have some arrangement with the government where you're allowed to continue to work here for a while afterwards? Anybody?
Oh, hi.
We just have a student visa, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that there's like a 2-year program, PSW visa, and allow us to stay in UK for 2 years. And also recently, I have looked through some information about the graduate theme, which will provide you a like working visa.
Exactly. So in that sort of case, you want to get on it and you want to get a job immediately after school, right? So that you have the maximum time, because then if you decide, actually, I want to stay in the UK, then if you've been working for a company and they know your value, then they don't want to lose you because of a visa, right? So this is the thing, is it's this funny thing with the visas. If you're somebody they've never even looked at, they have no idea whether or not, you know, a month into the job that you're going to be drinking alcohol and, you know, not working. They have no idea who you are, right? But if you're in and you're working there and you've done 18 months and you're valuable, then they'll go to the end of the earth to get you a visa. You know, so that's the thing. So get a job ASAP. If you want one. I mean, you know, you also might need a holiday afterwards. I think I was very exhausted by the time I finished. Any more questions? No. All right. So let me give you the link to the slides, because my colleagues wrote a lot for you, and it's very interesting. So, and I'll also share it in an email with the link to the recording once it processes. But yeah, like quite a few of them were really jumped in. We're like happy to answer the question. So yeah.
Thank you so much for everything. I think this has been a very helpful session.
I hope so. I hope it wasn't just me talking.
No, I've listed a bunch of notes down, and I think you made some I really appreciate the giving us different avenues on top of the learning technologists as well, and kind of giving us the keywords. I think just giving us descriptions on like what you do as a learning technologist will really give us an edge in terms of, okay, on my resume, what can I put in to highlight that, yeah, I am qualified to become a learning technologist. So I think that slide is very, very helpful for building resumes.
And there's something that I wanted to tell you, actually. So I'm so glad that you triggered that memory, because afterwards we would have finished. I wanted to show you what the job specs look like, right? And this is something that I had no idea. This is a current job that we're looking for right now. And going back to, you know, what I was saying about how important it is to be, you know, to keep up with your tech skills. In particular, this time around, I know that we are not. We want somebody with curriculum design, right? We need somebody who is able to concept an entire curriculum. So, you know, if they can use Word and Excel, they get the job. But I wanted to show you that this is where a lot of people fall down in the job applications, and me too, until somebody told me how you apply. So when you'll see the overall purpose, you'll see the fluff. All of this is not fluff, right? So when you see something that says key responsibilities, accountabilities, and duties, and it says provide pedagogic advice, guidance, encouragement, and support, etc. What you need to do is you go through it, and I just need yeah, that'll do, right? Okay, so provide pedagogic advice, right? Okay, and you list it, and you start numbering, and then, you know, encouragement and support staff. And let's see, they want learning design, right? And you start listing: 1, pedagogic advice; 2, encouragement support staff; 3, learning design. And then you go through and you literally, like, I'm just randomly doing this for now, right? But you go through and you see what is it they're asking for. And you put them in a spreadsheet, and then you work out how you're going to answer that. How can I relate what I did in my previous job, even if it was working in a factory? Okay. Or, you know, so you can go back years, you know, or the babysitting job that I had, or my teaching role. And you take out each little thing and you like make yourself a note of how you can say it. And then when you do your application, you literally, this is still doing this annotation thing. So how do I erase this? I've never done this before. Okay. So you literally answer every single thing they did. And the reason why I tell you this, and why I wanted to make that so clear to you, is because when somebody applies for a job, the people on the panel who decide who's going to be shortlisted, we sit there with a spreadsheet, literally. This is what we go through the spreadsheet, and we tick off, and then we count how many things you mentioned. That's how the shortlisting can work for a job like this one. Maybe it's different from another job, but it's literally, do you have experience doing this? Tick, 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 tick. Okay. She's got 25. She's got 18. She's got 7 by, right? And you might have 29 of those things, but you didn't write them down. So you didn't get shortlisted because you didn't mention them. So yeah, so I would say it's an unbelievably lengthy process to apply for a job properly, but find a day, you know, block an entire day and say, okay, I'm going to comb through this. I'm going to understand exactly what they want, and then match yourself to that job, so that you can at least get that interview. I hope that was helpful.
Very, very helpful. That is so helpful. Thank you so much.
Cool. Okay, that's it.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
That inspires me a lot.
No worries. Take care. Bye-bye.